Most people break when challenged. Their emotions betray them, their voices tremble, and their composure shatters before the first strike is even made. But the one who remains unmoved, who stands calm as others rage and crumble, always wins the confrontation without raising his voice or hand. In this video, you will learn not how to fight, but how to rule yourself so completely that no one can ever rule you. In every confrontation, whether between men, nations, or ideas, the weak seek to defend, while the powerful seek to control the frame. The difference lies not in words or weapons, but in inner stillness. True power is emotional sovereignty, the art of appearing motionless while calculating the next 10 moves in silence. The wise understand that composure is not kindness, it is strategy. A calm face conceals a mind that measures every reaction, every weakness, every impulse of the opponent. To remain unshaken is not a sign of peace, it is a mask of war, worn by those who understand that dominance begins with self-mastery. Tonight, you will learn the psychology of those who never flinch. Those who know that to control the moment, you must first control your own blood. Power does not begin in the world, it begins within you. Before a man can command armies, nations, or the minds of others, he must first rule the chaos in his own blood. Most fail here. They seek to dominate others while being slaves to their own anger, fear, and vanity. Tell me, how can one rule men if he cannot rule his pulse? How can he shape destiny if his emotions dictate his every move? You see, the true battlefield is not the world outside, it is the kingdom inside your chest. And most men live in civil war. Their desires rebel against their discipline. Their fear dethrones their courage. Their ego poisons their wisdom. They mistake reaction for strength and emotion for authenticity. But authenticity without control is just chaos wearing a crown. Consider Caesar. He conquered Gaul, defeated Pompey, and ruled Rome not merely by his legions, but by his composure. Even when betrayed, even as knives turned against him, he faced death with calm. The assassins trembled, he did not, and that calm, that quiet authority, was more powerful than any sword. Those who rule themselves radiate something that cannot be imitated. An invisible order, a gravity that bends others into obedience. The untrained man screams to be heard. The disciplined man whispers, and the world listens. This is the law of inner kingdoms. Before you control others, you must become your own sovereign. Most men do not want sovereignty, they want indulgence. They believe power is the right to act without restraint. The fool says, I speak my mind. The wise say, choose my words. The fool says, I follow my heart. The wise say, I train my heart to follow me. Every emotion is a soldier. Anger, desire, fear, ambition, they are not enemies. They are forces, and forces require command. You can suppress them and become cold, but lifeless. Or you can rule them and become coldly alive. Psychology calls this emotional regulation. Philosophy calls it temperance. Strategy calls it control of state. But I call it sovereignty of self. Watch the men who fall in public. A single insult shatters them. A betrayal makes them reckless. They shout, rage, and reveal their weakness to the world. Do you think the world pities them? No. It memorizes their reactions. Every outburst becomes a manual for how to manipulate them later. You must be unreadable. You must be the ruler no one dares predict. When a man provokes you, he is probing for power. If you react, you confirm he has it. But if you remain still, if your eyes show nothing but measured indifference, he collapses into confusion. The mind that governs itself bends time. You respond not in the heat of the moment, but at the right moment. That difference separates the impulsive from the strategic, the common from the calculating. Even in private battles, arguments, betrayals, humiliation, remember, every reaction you give freely is a weapon handed to your enemy. You disarm yourself with emotion. And yet, control does not mean suppression. The tyrant who silences his emotions becomes brittle. True mastery means hearing the noise inside, but choosing silence outside. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the command of feeling. Do you recall the generals who stood calm amid disaster? Napoleon at Austerlitz, Alexander before battle. Their calm was not natural, it was trained. They had already fought the war within themselves. The great strategist wins twice, once inside, once outside, and the first victory determines the second. Ask yourself what rules you: anger, desire, pride, or have you built an inner throne from which you command them all? To rule yourself, you must observe yourself. Study your impulses as a king studies his court. Which emotions serve you? Which conspire to betray you? When you begin to see emotion as an instrument, you become dangerous. No one can bait you. No one can read you. No one can shake you. In the end, the one who appears most powerful is not the loudest or the boldest. It is the one who stands calm while the world burns, eyes unblinking, waiting for the fire to die on its own. That man owns his kingdom, and his kingdom is himself. But what happens when another tries to seize control of your frame? When your calm is tested and the world demands a reaction? In every confrontation, the first to show emotion loses. Not because emotion is weakness, but because it reveals the map of your mind. A raised eyebrow, a clenched jaw, a flicker of surprise, these are signals. They tell the enemy where to strike. They whisper, "I can be moved." But the man who wears a blank face, who gives nothing, who lets silence speak for him, creates fear far greater than any shout ever could. Think of it, what do you feel when you cannot read someone? When their eyes hold still, when their mouth betrays no thought? Your mind begins to race. You project your own fears, your own interpretations. You battle shadows of your own creation. That is power. The blank face is not emptiness. It is a mirror. And mirrors do not fight back. They reflect the opponent until he destroys himself. Consider the court of Renaissance Italy, where one misplaced expression could invite death. Nobles smiled while plotting murders. Courtiers praised kings they planned to betray. In that world, the slightest twitch could cost you everything. So men learned to wear faces carved from marble. Those who survived longest were not the strongest or the most moral. They were the most unreadable. Even today, in the modern world of glass offices and digital masks, the same rule applies. In business negotiations, the calm man controls the terms. In arguments, the silent one dictates the tone. And in relationships, the person who reacts least always holds the power. Your face is your battlefield. Most lose before they speak. Have you noticed how quickly people rush to explain themselves? To prove they are right, to justify, to defend. Every defense is a confession. It tells the other person that you care what they think. But the one who listens without expression forces others to drown in their own noise. They reveal themselves entirely, hoping for a reaction that never comes. In psychology, this is known as the neutral response. It disarms manipulation. When someone expects resistance and receives none, their strategy collapses. They grow nervous, confused, even guilty. A blank face turns their aggression inward. It forces them to wonder, did I go too far? What is he thinking? The uncertainty eats them alive. You see, people fear silence because it removes their control. They cannot predict silence. They cannot read it, or twist it, or measure it, and so they fill it with confession, apology, or foolish over-explanation. That is when you win. Think of a king sitting upon his throne, listening to his courtiers argue. He nods once, says nothing. The room becomes uneasy. Every man wonders what is His Majesty thinking, and in that moment of collective anxiety, the king has already won. Because the less you reveal, the more power others imagine you have. The imagination of others is the most loyal servant a strategist can possess. Now, do not mistake the blank face for indifference. It is performance. It is the art of appearing calm while calculating deeply. The mind works in secret. The face betrays nothing. Even the smallest smirk can undo hours of control. Your goal is to become unreadable, yet aware, still as water, but never asleep. Observe the world's great manipulators. They master their expressions as generals master terrain. Every smile is chosen. Every silence is loaded. Their calm face makes others speak, react, and reveal themselves. In war, the silent commander terrifies more than the screaming one. In debate, the calm listener unsettles more than the furious speaker. And in life, the person who remains composed while others lose control always appears superior. Because they are. Ask yourself, How many times have you lost power simply because you showed too much? Because your anger exposed your wound. Because your smile gave away approval you should have withheld. Every emotion shown is a message sent, and messages cannot be unsent. Control your face, and you control the perception of your strength. And perception is strength. Power exists not only in what you are, but in what others believe you to be. So train your stillness. Speak with your silence. Let others feel the weight of your calm. When they demand a reaction, give them none. When they expect anger, give them stillness. When they seek your weakness, show them a mirror. Soon, they will realize that fighting you is like fighting smoke. They cannot touch what they cannot read, and they will retreat. Not because you overpowered them, but because they overexposed themselves. That is the art of the blank face, the silent victory. The domination of presence over noise. But what happens when silence alone is not enough? When you must frame the entire encounter to your advantage? Every confrontation begins before the first word is spoken. The real battle is not fought in arguments or gestures. It's fought in the invisible space between two minds. That space is called the frame. The frame is the invisible law that decides whose reality dominates. It defines what the encounter means, who holds the power, and what the rules are. Most people never see it, and that is why they always lose. Let me ask you, when someone insults you and you rush to defend yourself, whose frame are you in? Theirs. When you chase approval, when you explain yourself, when you try to prove your worth, you have already accepted their terms of engagement. You are playing on their board. Power is not about strength or intelligence. It is about definition. The one who defines the meaning of the moment controls it. In politics, the ruler who controls the narrative controls the people. In personal life, the one who controls the interpretation controls the relationship. Frames are invisible thrones, and most bow before them without even realizing. Consider an example. A prince once enters a hall full of nobles. One of them, jealous and arrogant, greets him not with respect, but with mockery. The prince does not respond in anger. He laughs softly, almost dismissively, and turns his back to speak with another. In that single gesture, he rewrote the scene. The insult no longer mattered. The noble looked foolish for trying too hard to provoke a man who refused to be touched. The prince controlled the frame. The weak think confrontation is about reaction. The wise know it's about definition. You can lose every verbal exchange and still win the war, if your opponent has been playing inside your frame. Psychology calls this frame control, the ability to shape the meaning of reality through composure, confidence, and consistency. But let's call it what it truly is, strategic domination without open warfare. Watch a skilled negotiator. He never argues, he defines. If you say, "That's too expensive," he replies, "Only for those who can't see its value." He doesn't fight your statement, he reframes your position. He makes you defend his ground. It is the same in all power games. The world is full of people trying to drag you into their emotional frames. Victimhood, outrage, insecurity. Once you enter their frame, you inherit their weakness. So when someone says, "You've changed," they're inviting guilt. When someone says, "You're being selfish," they're inviting submission. And when someone says, "Prove yourself," they're inviting obedience. Each of these is a trap disguised as conversation. The master strategist never enters. He observes. He defines. He decides what this moment will mean. When a storm rises, do you curse the wind, or do you declare, "I am the storm"? That declaration shifts the frame. You cease to be a victim of the event. You become the event itself. Even in silence, you can impose a frame. Stillness, calm, and certainty are invisible declarations of control. I am not reacting. I am defining. Remember this: every interaction is a contest of frames. Either yours dominates, or theirs does. There is no equality in human communication, only the illusion of it. The masses live inside frames built by others: media, politics, culture, family. They are prisoners of inherited meaning. But the powerful, they are architects. They design meaning. They decide what reality is, and others follow. It is why the greatest rulers and manipulators spoke little and observed much. They knew that to define reality, one must first withdraw from the noise of it. They let others speak first, reveal themselves, and exhaust their energy. Then, with a single statement, they established a frame so strong that no one dared contradict it. Ask yourself, how often have you surrendered control by explaining instead of defining? By defending instead of reframing? By living in someone else's meaning instead of creating your own? The weak crave to be understood. The strong prefer to be interpreted, because when others must interpret you, you already control their perception. This is the essence of power, not force, not volume, but definition. The ability to decide what the world means before anyone else does. And those who master this can lead armies, command crowds, or silence enemies, with nothing but the weight of their frame. But what happens when the enemy learns this same art? When your frame is challenged by someone as calm, as calculating, and as dangerous as you? The impulsive man believes speed is power. He strikes fast, speaks fast, decides fast, because silence makes him anxious. But the strategist knows hesitation is a weapon. Power does not belong to the quick. It belongs to the patient. He who can wait observes. He who observes understands. And he who understands commands. Every confrontation is a test of time. The weak rush to react. The powerful delay, measure, and strike only when every advantage has ripened. Consider the chess master. He does not move in anger. He studies the board in silence. Every second that passes is pressure building in his opponent's mind, until the impatient man destroys himself, while the calm one merely watches. Such is the art of the calculated delay. Do you remember how empires fall? Rarely through defeat. They collapse through haste. Kings who feared to appear indecisive rushed into wars they could not win. Lovers who feared silence confessed too much. Leaders who feared doubt made promises that enslaved them later. The wise move slowly because they see the field beyond the moment. They know that time, like a river, carries both truth and error to the surface. If you can wait, your enemies will show their intentions without you asking. But if you rush, you reveal yours. In psychology, this is called response inhibition. It is the measure of one's control over impulses, the ability to restrain immediate reaction and buy time for strategic thought. In philosophy, it is prudence. In war, it is patience sharpened into a blade. History belongs to those who knew when not to move. Think of Hannibal. When Rome sent army after army against him, he often refused open battle. He waited, until arrogance made the Romans walk into traps of their own making. They mistook his stillness for weakness. They mistook his silence for fear. And in that miscalculation lay their defeat. The same principle governs human interaction. When someone provokes you, they are not seeking your reaction. They are seeking control over time. They wish to pull you into their rhythm, to make you dance to their tempo. If you reply instantly, you surrender control of the tempo. But if you pause, if you delay, the rhythm becomes yours again. Every heartbeat of silence increases your gravity. Every second of restraint makes your next word more devastating. Ask yourself, when was the last time you waited before replying to an insult? Before making a decision? Before sending that message driven by pride? The world rewards the one who waits an extra moment before acting, because in that single moment, perception shifts. What was chaos becomes clarity. What was rage becomes calculation. What was reaction becomes power. To delay is not to freeze. It is to prepare, like the archer who pulls the bowstring slowly, not out of weakness, but to ensure the shot will end the fight in one strike. Most men cannot wait because waiting feels like losing. But to the strategist, waiting is winning in disguise. The opponent grows restless. He fills the silence with words, emotions, mistakes. He reveals what you were meant to discover. You learn more in 1 minute of stillness than others do in an hour of reaction. Even in persuasion, delay breeds influence. The best negotiators pause before answering, creating tension the other side rushes to fill. That tension makes people justify themselves, sweeten the deal, or reveal hidden information, simply to break the discomfort of your silence. And the more they speak, the more they lose control. Power belongs to the one who can outweigh the other. The greatest rulers understood this law. They let enemies burn themselves in haste while they stood still, watching from the shadows, striking only when everything was certain. Delay is not cowardice. It is the camouflage of the patient predator. Think of time as a sword. In the hands of the impulsive, it cuts recklessly. In the hands of the wise, it carves destiny. So the next time you are confronted, pause. Let the other speak, reveal, bleed. You will see their mind unravel as yours sharpens. The man who waits sees 10 moves ahead. The man who rushes sees only one, and loses even that. To act without waiting is to act blindly. To wait without purpose is to decay. But to wait with intention, that is dominion. And yet, what happens when silence and patience are no longer enough? When the enemy burns with emotion and you must turn that fire against them. Every emotion that comes toward you carries an invitation: join me in this chaos. Be angry because I am angry. Fear because I fear. React because I reacted. Most people accept that invitation instantly. They mirror emotion without realizing it. And in doing so, they surrender control of their own state. But the strategist, the one who commands himself, learns another kind of reflection. A colder one. A mirror that shows everything, absorbs nothing. This is the cold mirror effect. It is the art of reflecting emotion without being ruled by it. Of letting another's fury, guilt, or manipulation die in its own echo. Because the truth is simple, the one who stays still forces others to drown in their own waves. Think of a mirror. When you stand before it, it does not argue, it does not flinch. It simply returns what it sees, and that quiet reflection unnerves people more than any resistance ever could. The same is true in human conflict. When someone shouts at you and you remain calm, their anger loses momentum. When they accuse and you do not defend, their certainty cracks. When they attempt to shame you, but you show no wound, their weapon turns inward. Psychology calls this emotional deflection through neutrality, but it is far older than any modern theory. Rulers, generals, and lovers have used it for centuries. Consider the story of Emperor Tiberius. He ruled Rome not with passion, but with silence. When senators insulted him, he neither punished nor replied. He simply watched. Days later, his enemies destroyed one another, each suspecting the other of betrayal. Tiberius had become their mirror. Their hatred found no enemy to land on, so it consumed itself. Such is the genius of the cold mirror. To fight emotion with emotion is to feed it. To reflect it calmly is to starve it. Ask yourself, how many times have you been pulled into another person's storm? An argument you didn't start, a guilt you didn't earn, a panic that wasn't yours. You lost not because they were right, but because you reacted. Reaction is surrender. Reflection is command. Imagine a manipulator accusing you of being cold, selfish, or uncaring. They are probing for guilt, hoping to awaken a reflex. But if you answer softly, even curiously, is that what you think? You return the emotion without owning it. Now they must explain, justify, overexpose. Their weapon collapses under its own weight. In politics, this principle wins wars without blood. When a rival attacks, the unshaken ruler responds not with outrage but with calm dismissal. The public sees strength in composure, not in rage. The attacker appears emotional, desperate, undisciplined. The silent one appears sovereign. In relationships, the cold mirror reveals truth faster than confrontation. When someone plays games to provoke jealousy, indifference unmasks their insecurity. When they manipulate through tears or guilt, your calm forces them to face the emptiness of their tactic. Emotions that cannot infect you die upon contact. But the cold mirror requires mastery. It is not numbness. It is awareness without absorption. You must feel the emotion approaching, study it, understand its direction, then let it pass through you untouched. Think of water hitting a blade. The blade does not resist. It cuts through by being perfectly still. That stillness is not weakness. It is precision. The world will test you constantly. People will throw emotion at you like stones, trying to see what makes you bleed. But if you do not react, they learn you cannot be shaken, and therefore cannot be controlled. Even in manipulation, the cold mirror is supreme. If someone flatters you, reflect appreciation, but do not internalize it. Flattery is a leash disguised as praise. If you believe it too quickly, you begin to dance to another's rhythm. True power is to remain centered while the world projects its illusions upon you. Because when you no longer respond to others' emotional commands, they begin to orbit your calm like moths around a flame they cannot touch. Ask yourself, what if you became that mirror? What if every attack, every test, every attempt to provoke you simply returned to its sender, amplified by their own reflection? This is the essence of the cold mirror effect: power through stillness, dominance through detachment, the art of letting your enemy destroy himself in his own reflection. And yet, there is a step beyond reflection, a point where you no longer merely absorb emotion, but begin to radiate something greater, an aura so calm and deliberate that it bends others without a word. There is a silence that speaks louder than authority, a calm that commands obedience without demand, an invisible gravity that draws others into orbit. This is not luck. It is not charm. It is the aura of the unshaken. Those who possess it seem untouchable, not because they are stronger, but because they appear inevitable. The aura of the unshaken is not built in moments of comfort. It is forged in chaos, when everything around you demands a reaction and you refuse to give one. When others flinch, you stand. When others break, you breathe. And when others panic, you observe. In that stillness, people begin to feel something ancient within you. Authority without effort. History is filled with such figures. Men and women who never shouted, never begged, never rushed, yet controlled empires. Think of Marcus Aurelius, writing in his tent amid the storms of war. The empire was fracturing, generals plotting, soldiers dying, and still he wrote of inner order. He understood chaos cannot touch the one who governs himself. Or consider Elizabeth I of England. Surrounded by enemies foreign and domestic, she wore serenity like armor. When her council panicked, she smiled. When her life was threatened, she walked among her guards unarmed. The calm was her crown. Her composure made her divine in the eyes of her people. The world obeys the one who seems above its noise. Psychology explains it as emotional contagion, the silent spread of state. People mirror the energy they sense in others. If you radiate calm, they feel safe. If you radiate fear, they turn on you. And if you radiate certainty, true, unshakable certainty, they will follow you anywhere, even into ruin. But here is the paradox: you cannot fake this aura. You can only become it. Pretending to be calm only works until life tests you. The moment pressure rises, the mask cracks. Because calmness built on pretense collapses under heat. But calmness built on mastery hardens with it. Ask yourself, what do people feel in your presence? Do they sense anxiety, doubt, reactivity? Or do they feel the quiet gravity of someone who cannot be moved? That feeling, your atmosphere, is your true power. It shapes how others treat you long before you speak. In every hierarchy, the aura of the unshaken separates rulers from subjects. The ruler controls his reactions, the subject is ruled by them. And those who cannot control their emotional state must serve those who can. Observe how crowds behave. When panic spreads, they look for one man, one face that shows no fear, and whoever possesses that stillness becomes their leader by default. It is not charisma. It is emotional dominance. Even predators know this law. Animals in the wild sense hesitation before they see it. The still animal becomes threat, the restless one becomes prey. In human nature, it is the same. Those who cannot hold their own stillness are devoured by those who can. But how do you build such an aura? First, discipline of the body. Your breath, your posture, your gaze must obey you. People read these faster than words. A calm body signals a calm mind. A restless body exposes fear. Second, control of narrative. You must know what story you are telling with your silence. Every reaction is a declaration of what you are. To remain still while others crumble is to declare, I am not one of you. I am beyond you. Third, acceptance of loss. Nothing makes a man calm like detachment. When you have made peace with what can be taken from you, nothing can be used against you. The unshaken aura is built on the ruins of attachment. When you no longer fear losing, you are finally free to lead. This is why the aura of the unshaken inspires both loyalty and fear. People sense that your peace does not depend on them, that you could walk away at any moment and still remain whole. They are drawn to it, yet unsettled by it. Such calm cannot be bought. It must be lived. To achieve it, you must stand still in the storm until the storm itself tires of moving you. You must practice silence until it becomes a weapon. You must stop reacting and start radiating. When you reach that point, presence alone is enough to alter a room. Conversations quiet, eyes turn, heart slow, and the world adjusts itself to you. This is the highest form of power, the point where control no longer requires effort, where influence flows not from what you say, but from what you are. And yet, there is one final truth. Even the unshaken can fall if they do not understand the dangers of appearing too composed. Because when calm becomes legend, the ambitious will begin to test it. That is where the next law begins. The shadow of composure. And it reveals how to stay untouchable even when your stillness becomes a target. Power is never seized through noise. It is taken through silence, through subtle influence that others cannot trace. You do not shout your control, you weave it. You plant thoughts that others mistake for their own. You let them act on your will, believing it to be theirs. That is the highest form of mastery, when your hand remains invisible, yet everything moves as you wish. The wise do not force obedience, they create alignment. They do not demand loyalty, they engineer it. And when they vanish, their influence remains, whispering through the minds they've shaped. Ask yourself, how many of your choices are truly yours? And how many belong to someone who understood this law before you did? Remember this: the world is ruled not by those who speak the loudest, but by those who think the deepest. If you seek to rule without ruling, learn to control perception itself. Leave your thoughts below. Subscribe if you wish to learn how power truly moves beneath the surface. And share this, so others may wonder who is really in control.